So, maybe you're a good landlord?
My name is James, and I'm a man who's gotten comfortable with silence. For the past 6 years, I've lived alone in this old Victorian house in northeast Portland, the kind of place that creaks and groans, that needs constant attention, that most people would call a money pit. But I call it home. I'm a mechanic by trade. Spend my days with my hands under car hoods, speaking the language of engines instead of people. It worked for me. The isolation felt less like loneliness and more like choice. But houses have a way of reminding you that you're just one person living in the space meant for more. The spare room had been sitting empty for 2 years. My ex-girlfriend used to talk about turning it into an office, or a nursery, or a creative studio. Then she left, and the room stayed empty. When money got tight after my dad got sick, I posted an ad online. Room for rent, quiet neighborhood, utilities included. I wasn't expecting much. I wasn't expecting anyone, really. I'd become the kind of person that expected nothing. But then she came. I'll never forget that first Tuesday in October. The doorbell rang around 6 p.m., and I was covered in motor oil, wearing a shirt I'd had since the 90s. I opened the door to find a woman standing on my porch with a single suitcase and the most cautious expression I'd ever seen. "Hi," she said quietly. "I'm here about the room." She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 26 or 27, with dark blonde hair that she kept tucking behind her ears and gray eyes that seemed to be constantly assessing danger. She wore a vintage cardigan despite it being relatively warm, and she held that suitcase like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. "Right. Yeah," I said, suddenly aware of how I must look. "I'm James. Give me 1 second. I need to wash my hands. The house is a little messy. Fair warning." "It's fine," she said softly. "I'm not picky." Her name was Claire. She was a graduate student studying urban planning, and she gave me the kind of answer people give when they are not being entirely truthful. She said she needed a quiet place to focus on her thesis. What she didn't say was why she looked like she was running from something. I'd learned enough about people in my 38 years to recognize that particular kind of fear. I showed her the room. It was bare but clean, with hardwood floors and a window that looked out on the garden. She walked to the window and stood there for a long moment, just looking out at nothing. "It's very quiet," she said finally. "Yeah," I said. "My neighborhood's not exactly happening. Mostly just old houses and people who keep to themselves." She turned to look at me. "Good. I like that." We signed a month-to-month lease the next day. She moved in on a Saturday morning with what looked like the entirety of her possessions packed into that one suitcase and 2 cardboard boxes. She didn't ask for much, just wanted to know where the good coffee shops were and if I minded her having friends over. I told her the second part was fine. She never asked that question again because she never had anyone over. The first few weeks, we barely saw each other. She'd come home late, go straight to her room, and I'd hear the soft sound of her typing late into the night. I'd make coffee in the mornings, and sometimes I'd find a mug in the sink that suggested she'd been up even later than I'd thought. We passed each other in hallways like ships, polite but distant. But then one night, something shifted. I was in the kitchen at 11 p.m., reheating some lasagna I'd made earlier in the week, when she came downstairs looking like she'd been crying. She didn't say anything about it, just saw me at the stove and started to turn back. "There's plenty," I said, gesturing at the pot. "If you're hungry." She hesitated, weighing something internally. Then she nodded and sat at the kitchen table while I put a plate together for her. We ate in silence, but it wasn't the awkward silence of strangers. It was something different. It felt like understanding. "Bad day?" I asked carefully. She looked at me, and I could see her deciding whether to answer honestly. "Bad week," she said finally. "Bad year, actually." "Yeah," I said. "I get that." She pushed the pasta around her plate. "You ever feel like you're just running? Like you can't stop or you will have to face all the things you're running from?" I thought about my marriage that had fallen apart because I was too emotionally closed off. I thought about my father lying in a hospital bed 2 hours away, slowly disappearing from Alzheimer's. I thought about 6 years of silence that had felt like safety but probably felt more like avoidance. All the time, I admitted. She nodded, like that was the answer she needed. After that night, She started coming downstairs more often. We'd have coffee together in the mornings, just sitting at the kitchen table with our mugs, not talking. Or sometimes talking for hours about her thesis, about why I became a mechanic, about books we loved and movies we'd seen. She'd tell me about growing up in Seattle with a mother who was never satisfied, about accepting a scholarship to grad school just to get away. I'd tell her about losing my mom to cancer when I was 20, about my dad slowly fading, about why I'd stopped trying with people. We became each other's 11 p.m. confessional. 3 months in, she came home with a bad headache, and I made her tea from scratch. Actually went to the store and bought fresh ginger and honey because that's what my mom used to do. Claire sat on my couch while I prepared it, and when she took that first sip, she closed her eyes and actually smiled. Really smiled. Not the K-full half smile she usually gave me, but the kind of smile that reaches your whole face. "This is really good," she said. "My mom taught me," I said, sitting in the armchair across from her. She was big on the healing power of simple things. Was... Claire asked softly. "Cancer," I said, 20 years ago now. She set the tea down and just looked at me, like she was seeing me for the first time. "I'm so sorry." "Yeah," I said. "Me too." By month 6, I realized I was in love with her. It happened slowly enough that I didn't see it coming. I noticed it one morning when she made a terrible pun about her thesis, and I laughed so hard that coffee came out of my nose, and she laughed until she was crying. And I thought, this is it. This is what I've been missing. But I didn't say anything. Claire was fragile in a way that suggested any sudden movement might scare her away. She was just starting to open up. And I was afraid, terrified, actually, that revealing how I felt would shatter whatever this was between us. Then one night in spring, almost exactly 7 months after she'd moved in, there was a knock on my door. I was in the living room reading when I heard it. It was late, almost midnight. Claire usually came and went without ceremony. I opened the door to find a woman standing there who looked almost exactly like Claire. Same eyes, same bone structure, but older, maybe mid-50s, with a kind of tired expression that comes from worry. "I'm looking for my daughter," the woman said. "Claire, does she live here?" My stomach dropped. Claire had told me very little about her mother. She'd mentioned her name was Patricia, that she was critical, that they didn't really talk. But she'd never mentioned what her mother looked like, and she'd certainly never mentioned that her mother might show up at our door. "Wait here," I said. I went upstairs and knocked on Claire's door. She opened it, and when I told her who was downstairs, I watched the color drain from her face. "Oh, God," she whispered. "Oh, no. No, no, no." "What's wrong?" I asked, even though I was already afraid I knew. She sat down on her bed, and she told me everything. Her mother had had a stroke 3 weeks ago. She'd been trying to reach Claire for days, but Claire had changed her number to get away from her controlling behavior. Patricia had finally hired a private investigator to find where she was living. She wasn't dying, but she'd nearly died, and Claire's mother wanted to see her daughter. Wanted to fix things before something else happened. "I can't," Claire said, her voice breaking. "James, I can't. She's the reason I'm like this. She's the reason I'm so broken." "You're not broken," I said, and I moved to sit next to her. "But maybe you could talk to her? Not for her. For you. To get some closure or something." Claire shook her head, but she went downstairs. I stayed out of the way, but I could hear them talking in the living room. At first, just frustration and anger. Then, gradually, something shifted. I heard Claire cry. Really cry. The kind of crying that comes from deep wounds finally being addressed. It took 3 hours. When Patricia finally left, she stopped at the kitchen where I'd made myself gaze, and she looked at me with those same gray eyes as her daughter. "Thank you," she said simply, "for taking care of her." After she left, Claire came and found me in the kitchen. She was exhausted, hollowed out, but also different, like something had shifted inside of her. "I'm going to visit her tomorrow," she said, "in Seattle, to help her recover, to talk about everything." My heart sank. "Okay. I don't know how long I'll be gone," she continued, "and I don't know if I'll come back." There it was, the thing I'd been afraid of since the moment I met her. She was leaving, and there was nothing I could do to stop her. "Will you?" I asked quietly. "Come back?" She stepped closer to me. She reached out and took my hand, the first time she'd ever initiated physical contact. "Maybe," she said, "if you want me to." "I want you to," I said. "I know it's probably not fair to say that right now, when everything's complicated, but I want you to know that I want you to come back." She squeezed my hand. "I'll be gone 2 weeks. I'll call you. And James, thank you for not making this harder, for letting me figure it out." She was gone for 17 days. I know because I counted. The house felt enormous and empty. I went to work, came home, sat in that kitchen where we'd had so many late-night conversations, and I waited. She called every night, sometimes just for 5 minutes, sometimes for hours. She told me about helping her mother with physical therapy, about finally having conversations they should have had years ago, about realizing that Patricia had her own wounds that had made her the way she was. And on day 17, she came home. I was at the kitchen table when I heard her key in the lock. She came through the door with that same single suitcase, and she looked different, lighter, like she'd set down something heavy. "Hi," she said. "Hi," I said back. "I'm thinking about staying," she said. "If that's okay. My thesis is done. I got my degree. But Portland is starting to feel like home. And you're kind of the reason." I stood up. "Claire, I know," she interrupted. "I know how you feel. I think I've known for a while. And I feel it too. I was just scared. I didn't think I was capable of being healthy enough for someone like you." "You're more than capable," I said. "You're brave. You came here when you were broken and you let yourself heal. That's not weakness. That's the strongest thing I've ever seen." She came toward me, and she kissed me. It was soft and careful, like she was still learning how to trust. But it was real. That was 2 years ago. Claire and I got married last fall. We renovated that spare room together, turned it into a studio where she works on her urban planning consulting business. She still has bad days when the old fears creep in. And I still have nights where I wake up thinking about all the years I spent alone. But we're not alone anymore. We're here together. And sometimes, late at night, we still sit at that kitchen table with our coffee and just exist in each other's presence. No words needed. Just understanding. Just home. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more heartfelt tales, and drop a comment letting us know where you're listening from. We'd love to hear your thoughts and connect with you. Thanks for being part of the Unscripted Hearts community.